I got separated from my ex-wife 14 years ago. It was because she had cheated on him. At the time, our girls were 7 and 9 years old. The divorce was not amicable. After moving home with her lover, she gained primary custody, with me getting every other weekend. The kids did not take well to the adjustments, thus it was a complete failure from the beginning. I made an effort to co-parent well, but I had no idea that my girls were turning against me. Every time they paid them a visit, they would be irate and gloomy and would not discuss the issues. Screaming, tantrums, and swearing became the standard, and that was only when they did not completely retreat. They were being fed nothing but lies about me, including the claims that I didn't love them and that I would leave them for another family. It didn't get any better over time, and when they were teenagers, their most poisonous behavior ruined me 2 very serious relationships. I demanded that they come see me even if they didn't want to. They kind of cut me off when they turned 18, so I'm not sure if it was an error. They would just come by to make requests for money. Sadly, it hasn't improved despite my expectation that as they grew older and became more aware of the lies. It never will, in my opinion. Right now, I'm simply done. They would visit to my residence in the beginning of this year to demand additional money. They shouted at me once again and claimed they wished I wasn't their father when I refused. I told them that I wished I had simply left their lives, that perhaps I would have had a better chance at happiness and that perhaps they would have as well, because something inside of me had broken. They wailed and screamed and turned away, seeming shocked. Since then, I haven't seen them at all, not through phone calls or visits. Even though their absence makes me feel incredibly guilty, I almost feel relieved. Though I know it was an awful thing to say, I can't shake the feeling that it was true. Therefore, am I the a-hole? Top remarks *, not day-hull tragic, but not day-hull. I wish you could find something that gives you happiness, though. No visits, no phone calls, nothing. It fills me with incredible guilt, but I almost feel relieved that they're not around anymore. I'd say not carrying that weight around has cost you happiness. Not day-hole, not really happiness, relief maybe. Happiness will take some work, I suspect. Not day-all, no doubt, very common. I used to think fathers that walk away were deadbeats. Now I know most don't stand a chance if the mother decides to demonize him. My mum tried to do that with us, just subtle things to make us dislike our dad. Thing is, I'm autistic and I don't do subtle, so it never worked on me. Haha. Joke's on you, Mum. The older I get, the more I understand these things, but I still make people spell things out so I don't get totally off base. There's only so much crap and mistreatment a person can take, even if it is from their children. Be glad to enjoy your newfound freedom. Get back into dating, and stop feeling guilty. You stuck around when others would have walked away. You did nothing wrong. Your crazy ex filled them with poison, but now it seems your girls are ending up like her. I doubt they will see the light anytime soon. You did the best you can, be proud. Not to haul, sorry you've gone through this. Maybe it would help you move on by writing out your story. Your perspective, cold hard truths throughout, responsibilities for any of your own actions, etc. After it's done, then you can decide if you want to give them a copy or try once to get together and ask them to sit while you read it to them, or even just feel better about giving up and walking away. Could even ensure they get a copy when you pass. Again, so sorry, or just try and tell them that no matter what, you will always love them. You're sorry that they turned away from you after the divorce and there was nothing you could do to stop the lies, and that if they truly ever want a fresh start to let you know. I believe that if you go ahead and make that gesture, it will allow you to not close the door but to walk unpast it instead and start taking care for yourself. You need some healing, man, not dehul. Of course, next story. Am I the a-hal for embarrassing my aunt? I'm child-free, relationship-free, and intimacy-free. This is important for the story. I have no problems with people who have these things and will fully support people struggling with fertility issues as much as my body autonomy will allow. The only thing I won't do is to be a surrogate. Me, 29, female, and my parents were at a family party and my nosy Aunt Caroline asks, "So when are you going to get married and have kids?" I want to be happy on my terms, so it's no secret that I want neither. When I reminded her of this, she went off saying I wasn't a real woman if I didn't do these things. I just rolled my eyes, because I'd heard this all before. Then she said this brilliant thing. What about all the other women who can't have kids like your Aunt Jessie? You're so selfish. Aunt Jessie and her husband have tried to get pregnant for years, and after a few failed rounds of IVF, she just decided to have a hysterectomy and not deal with it anymore. Her husband has been supportive of her throughout the whole thing, and 20 years later, still going strong. I just laughed, pulled out my phone, and called Jessie, who lives a few states away, and asked her about what she thought of child-free women. That's their business? Why are you asking? To consider you, Caroline replied. I reply, I don't want children and that I'm self-centered and should feel sorry for people like you. The party went silent, and Caroline turned pale. Jessie was not having it, saying, Jesus freaking Christ, Caroline, let the woman be happy. Although you claimed you had better things to do, she is the only person who has helped me since my operation. The younger generation felt it was long overdue for Caroline to be corrected, while the older generation thought I was being petty. So am I the a-all for embarrassing my aunt? Now for the top comments. Well, if it isn't the consequences of her own actions making her cry. I thanked Jessie and hung up. Caroline was so humiliated. She was crying and she had just left the party. Not the hall, and I must say you did a great job taking that sh*t to pieces. I do love my son dearly, but my sister despises children. People should learn to mind their own damn business. It's life. For nibbles, 12 female, 7 male, 7 male, and 5 male. The boys are my siblings, the girl is the child of my best friend, and I would happily die to ensure that none of them ever experienced sadness. You seem like the ideal aunt, children, for refusing to allow your family to make fun of you for your decisions. Not the hall and, for crying out loud, how in the world would having children benefit Jessie? I'm very happy that I'm past menopause since I no longer receive these inquiries. Like myself, I've often puzzled why people claim that having children might make a person feel less confident in themselves. Being a surrogate mother is something I will never do, so I wouldn't rule out this woman saying something along the lines of, well, if you're not using your uterus, you should at least lend it out to someone who will. I get that you want children of your own, but it's going to be my body that changes, not the halls. In the past, families have just allowed people be nasty because that's how they are. It's bullcrap, in my opinion, not the hall. You did nothing more than expose someone who spread cruel false information, assuming you were aware of your Aunt Jessie's predicament and intended to harm her by implicating her. Based on Jessie's response, it appears that this is not a novel or uncommon event. Her Aunt Caroline ought to learn to refrain from speaking without first considering her words, and to simply keep quiet on a variety of subjects, including people's personal decisions. When I was 16, I told her for the first time, and she didn't write me off. I support you wholeheartedly if that's how you choose to live, my love. Moving on to the next incident. Am I a bad person for evicting my dad from my apartment after he tossed out my food? The 26-year-old me moved out of my parents' house after I turned 18. At the time, I had a bad connection with them, especially with my mom, but we were able to sort of mend it over time. I get to see them 2 or 3 times a year, and occasionally one of them stays at my house. It was my 51-year-old father who was visiting me recently. I had an eating disorder when I was in my late teens and early 20s. Actually, my parents' ignorance of the true nature of the issue was one of the reasons I moved. Having seen the appropriate psychologist, I'm doing fairly well. In addition to attempting to eat healthily, I really like cooking for myself. Vegetables, fruits, and sources of good fats like avocados, chicken, and beef are constantly abundant in my kitchen. Even so, I still get anxious when I have to eat unhealthily for an extended period of time. I'm putting effort into it. Real food, to my parents, has to be fast food or deep-fried with a ton of salt. It was intended for my dad to visit me for a week. I work morning hours, so he had to make his own breakfast, but I was going to cook dinner and feed the 2 of us. He began grumbling as soon as he saw my kitchen, and then after the first meal I made for him, which was pasta with chicken and zucchini. He added that if I'm eating this manner, it makes sense why I appear so undernourished. For the past 4 years, I have been keeping the proper weight, but according to him, the proper weight is when a person is at least somewhat overweight. Then, when he was staying at my apartment, he claimed he wanted genuine cuisine. I told him he could buy anything he wanted and that I knew where the closest grocery store was. I consume a healthy diet, but what he eats doesn't really matter to me. I fixed him dinner and he stopped complaining, so I assumed the issue was resolved. When I returned from work the following day, I saw that he had thrown out everything I had that he thought was inappropriate and had instead purchased pre-cooked food. A large bag of chips and candies, a bunch of red meat and sausages, and strangely, a few kilograms of potatoes. I burst into tears. I don't make a lot of money, and I spend a lot of it on food. However, he informed me that it's for my own benefit because it seems like I'm still not quite right. He added that I should stop being so picky and start eating like a regular person, alluding to my past eating condition. I urged him to leave my house after packing all the food he purchased into bags and carrying them to his luggage. I was certain he wouldn't stay the night at a station because the train to my hometown departs every hour or two. After calling me an entitled witch, he finally walked out. My dad told everyone in the family what had happened, and most of them think that because I expelled my own father, I'm being overly dramatic and callous. My mother informed me that unless I apologize, neither she nor my father will get in touch. Took me several years to address my eating condition, and I'm still not completely well. My dad's tantrums haven't made me lose my balance yet, but I also don't want my parents to disappear from my life. Do I have to give him an apology? Do I look like an a-hole? Now for the comments. Not a-hole. He was mistreating you, so you protected yourself. Look at your dad's behavior when you want to know why you have an eating disorder. My mom told me neither she nor dad will contact me again until I apologize. Do not do that. He needs to apologize, not you. But you're better off without these horrible a-holes anyway. Opie thinks this is a problem. This is not a problem. This is the opposite of a problem. Their problem just solved itself. Keep it that way. Opie shouldn't talk to either of them until they pay back for the food with interest. Not duel, not at the slightest. If your parents really wanted to help you, they would try to educate themselves about eating disorders, and they had plenty of opportunities in the last 8 years. Also, how dare you throw out food that you bought in your home with your own money? The fact that he's trying to excuse his behavior by commenting on Opie's past eating disorder is beyond repair. I would genuinely never talk to him again if that was my dad. Not Dale, definitely not Deal. He comes to your house and tells you that your healthy diet is bad, then throws out a bunch of food you'd obviously spent money on. He could have easily bought that food for himself without throwing all of your food out. He just decided to be a major a-hole. You had every right to kick him out. Absolutely not AUL. This is what threw it completely over the line. Throwing out your food to try to force you to eat the way he wants you to, when he could have just gotten whatever garbage you wanted and left your stuff alone. I give Opie a standing ovation for standing up for herself and kicking him out immediately. Never apologize for protecting yourself that way. He could have set you back years. I personally would not put any additional effort into maintaining a relationship with them. It sounds as if they bring nothing but bad feelings. Last story is titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my stepfather that he isn't my dad after he bought me a $3,200 gift? My father died 6 years ago, and I am a 20-year-old woman. Less than a year later, my mother was married again. It was a terrible experience, and I wasn't sure how to control my emotions at the moment. Over the years, I kept my distance from her since I never liked the man she remarried. But from the beginning, he started buying costly gifts for my brothers and myself. While I moved out as soon as I could, my siblings enjoyed the new way of life. In the present day, I live alone and am financially independent. I don't spend much time with my siblings, who reside at their home. He brought a ton of gifts for all of us for the pre-anniversary meal that my mother and her husband hosted a few days earlier. His gift to me was the most expensive of them. It was worth $3,200. He expressed his wish that we could work together to restore our friendship. My mom insisted on asking me if I liked it and even reminded me to express gratitude. The pressure was intense, and to be honest, it irritated me. I basically told him that he's not my dad and that he should quit acting that these gestures will make a difference, as well as that it's a waste of money and that it's reckless and foolish to spend that much on a present for someone who doesn't even care about you. There was complete chaos. My mom yelled at me, telling me to leave. My siblings were furious as well and among other things branded me a spoilt brat. They argued that I don't even deserve wonderful things because our stepfather continually coddles me. I've been called immature, petty, annoying, ungrateful, disrespectful, nasty, attention-seeking, and other derogatory terms throughout the past few days. My mother even said that if I keep acting in such a callous way, I will never be able to attract a man and that I will always be alone. Therefore, am I the a-hole? Oh, the a-hole is you. It seems like you vented all of your resentment towards this poor guy over your dad's passing and your mother's apparent hasty move on. Though you shouldn't feel forced to treat him like a new father and you're not required to like him, couldn't you at least treat him like a human being? I apologize, but a person who attempts to bribe his way into a relationship with a bereaved youngster is not exactly innocent. In my opinion, not at all. Everyone in the vicinity was urging her to thank him for his present, which he had chosen to provide. Instead of giving her a thoughtful present, he put her on the spot. I didn't know how to handle my feelings, in my opinion, is a wonderful starting point. It appears that you are still grieving for your father, or that you believe your stepfather has taken his place in your life. Have any of these prompted you to seek therapy? I apologize for putting you through this. I know it still hurts a lot. Here, everybody is bad. Now that you're 20, it's time for you to look after your mental health and stop allowing the pain you're going through to affect others around you. They are free to love your stepfather and to be happy. You're free to feel what you feel, but it won't help if you make it a point to treat him disrespectfully and with contempt at all times. And it appears that nobody has tried to assist you. Since the most recent event, they have been quite unreliable. I apologize once more for your loss. Be careful. Many thanks. We're gonna start next month. But I've never had therapy. Kind of, you're the a-hole. It must be terrible to lose a parent at the age of 14, and it must be terrible to feel like he's attempting to take your father's place in everyone's eyes. Presumably, he believes that giving presents is a means of expressing his desire for a relationship. He should quit trying to connect with you in this way since you've demonstrated that you don't respond to it. Being kind to your mother and other family members who do love him, even if you're not fully committed, is respectful. Not being a jerk is vital since he's a part of your family's existence, even though he's not your dad. I believe it might be really helpful if you haven't had any kind of counseling to work through some of these concerns. Though it's obvious that there's a lot of anguish, being rude to others will ultimately make you feel alone.